your resources and help the people that can be helped. Okay, for Shay, we're doing a 360. Everybody wave, yep.
Just like the Bob Braun show. The required show. Everybody wave at the camera.
Small town America.
Hi.
All right, welcome to First Universalist of New Madison, Universalist Unitarian. We go by both, one, the other. They're pretty much the same. Do we have any announcements today?
I had a El Dorado congregation send us their coming up calendar, and so I'll put it on the back table. I won't read all of these, but I thought it was very kind of them to share that with us.
Yes.
And then also, we are looking at probably having a combined service as we do usually each year. You recall we were there in El Dorado back in November, and it looks like we're looking at Palm Sunday this year for us to host them here. If you remember last year, we put a nice dinner together. We met back here in the West Room and did not go into the basement, and it seemed to work out well. So just kind of mark that on your calendar, Palm Sunday, tentatively.
And we'll, whatever people contribute for food, that's what we'll do. They were nice enough to provide everything. So, and we're not going to tell them they can't bring anything, but we'll have everything. We will make sure that everything is here that they need, drinks, a meat, vegetables, and a salad or something like that. All right. Margaret, do you want to announce your performance? Didn't you send us an email that you have a performance coming up?
Yeah, I got two things coming up. One is an art show I'm in next Saturday.
Oh, that's right, the art show, that's what it was.
Yeah, it's a real casual thing, family friendly, for Huber Heights residents. So anybody K to 12, school kids, and then adults. So I'm gonna have a table over there. It's free.
Where?
It's at, I can't remember the name of it. It's on Powell Road in Huber Heights.
We'll get it, we'll have Mike send out an email blast to everybody with the location.
Yeah.
And when is that?
It's this coming Saturday, February 11th from 2 to 7 p.m.
Okay, so
It's just a one-day, like, art
show in
showcase.
Huber Heights. So if you're available, I might even be in town that day, so I hope I can make it. But Margaret sent out an email, and the address and everything is in the email.
Yeah, it's
so
on there.
I'll pass that along. And then you had a performance too? You said you had two things?
Yeah, the band performance is coming up March 6th. That's a Monday night, I believe, at 7 p.m. in Kettering. I can send you details.
Yeah, send the details on that. So I want to give people all the opportunities. All right, any other announcements? Okay, our prelude is There Is a Fountain. Thanks be for the blessing of music. There is a fountain. I forgot to announce Derek will be here next Sunday. Our guest pastor from El Dorado. He's always very enjoyable and always has a very succinct and touchable, reachable sermon that he presents. Okay, as you can see from our picture, we are doing Supporting the World. The world is in our hands. Our presentation today is from Richard Venus, out of his book. I highly recommend it. I don't know if we have a copy here or not. I have an extra copy I can loan it to anybody that wants it. Every place is a holy ground. He is an amazing writer and an amazing thinker and a very wise person. Maybe we didn't appreciate him. Well, I think we did appreciate him enough, and we still appreciate him. But the more you find out about him, the more remarkable a person that he is. So that's that will be our topic. And here is another one, the world in our hands. Our chalice lighting is, chalice lighting is All Animal Chalice by Mark Ka, C-A is his name. We light this chalice, spark of the original fire of creation, to remind us that we all on this planet, the furred, the feathered, the finned, and the scaled, along with us featherless bipeds, we are all made of the same star stuff and all share a common destiny. We all share the same hopes of a life free from harm and suffering, and the same aspirations of happiness, love, and flourishing, being able to express our own unique natures and capacities as best we may. We are just that many diverse perspectives from which the whole is seen and experienced. Our opening hymn is 29, Joyful, Joyful, Joyful. never singing, march we onward, victors in the midst of strife. Joyful music lifts us sunward in the triumph song of life. Every time I hear this song, I think of a movie. Does anybody else know the same movie? Anybody see The Money Pit with Tom Hanks? I highly recommend that as a movie of joyful strife that ends in happiness. Tom Hanks is a pretty amazing, this is one of his older, this is an old movie. It's about a couple who buy an old house, a dilapidated old house, and the terrible things they go through, which I can identify with, trying to rebuild the plumbing, the electric, and then they have a falling out in their relationship and then get back together at the end. It's a fun movie, it's an adorable movie, and this song plays a major part in the movie. Okay, our affirmation is 459 in your hymnal. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart. That is the hard thing to do, to make the balance. And we must hold the whole world in our hands. Okay, our children's story, and this is related to holding the whole world in our hands, and it is also related to Richard's story that I'll be doing for you, which is to hold fragile in our hands.
All moms know taking care of a newborn is hard work. Just ask an otter. Otter pups are born not knowing how to swim. So their moms have to carry them around everywhere they go for 6 months. And like all babies, otter pups can be a handful. Baby otters eat a lot. They can eat up to a quarter of their body weight a day. So when otter moms have to go off hunting for food, or just need a little time to binge Netflix, they swaddle their pups in a seaweed blanket. The seaweed helps keep the baby safe and secure till mom comes back with dinner. Even as the babies grow up and learn to swim on their own, otter families still stick together. Literally. Otter moms will hold hands with their pup while they nap together to keep them from floating from their group, which is called a raft. And another way otters are just like us, nap time is very, very important. Otters spend about 11 hours out of the day sleeping or resting. Just 5 more minutes. Otters are also one of the only other mammals besides humans that use tools. Otters love seafood, and they use rocks to open mollusks and clams. Some otters will keep a favorite rock for their entire lives, storing it in a pocket of skin under their arms. And not for nothing, otters are amazing jugglers. Unlike most marine animals, otters don't have a layer of blubber, but they do have the thickest fur of any other mammal. It makes them naturally waterproof and buoyant. Otters can also close both of their nostrils and ears when they go underwater, and their webbed back feet make them speedy swimmers. So otters are amazing in their own special ways, but we have a lot in common too. And one thing's for sure, whether you're an otter or a human, moms just get the job done. Mom. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Tim,
Yes,
where are otters and how large are they?
otters are on the west coast primarily. Actually, there's river otters, but these are sea otters, and they're on the west coast. They live in the kelp forests along California, and they eat sea urchins. We'll probably do a presentation on that. There's been all kinds of problems with sea urchins and sea anemones. Something is going through killing that and killing the kelp forest, which is like planet degradation, which is why we keep talking about the ecology all the time. This keeps happening around us, whether we're aware of it or not. So that's what I'm kind of doing, is helping us be aware of it. They're about the size of a beaver, so they would weigh maybe 10 or 15, 20 pounds. They're not huge. And they look a lot bigger than they are. Like they said, their fur is extremely thick and full of air bubbles, which keeps them warm and helps them float. So the actual otter part is not as thick. And we'll kind of talk about that as we go through it too. Any other questions on otters? And otters play pretty prominently. They're prominent in Richard's story too. All right, joys and concerns. Ukraine, as always, things have not improved. They're kind of at a stalemate in the winter. Everybody's predicting intensified fighting as summer comes, or as spring comes and the ground dries up. We'll just have to see what happens. The Ukrainians are basically holding their own, but the Russians are 20 times their size with 20 times the money, and sending over drones and missiles and just blowing up civilian buildings right and left. So if you saw the news, there have been volunteers there helping the Ukrainians. An American volunteer was just killed this week. He brought an ambulance and was a medic, a Marine Corps medic, and that's what he did, was help people evacuate these towns and then helped with the people who were wounded, both civilians and soldiers. He was killed by a Russian artillery shell. There was a long thing on the news talking about his life and how much he had dedicated his life to helping other people. And I have no understanding of someone who would brave death to help other people in a situation like that. I'm not sure what drives those people, but we need more of them. Okay, candle for Ukraine, and I forgot his name. I should have had his name when I was going to mention it. Yes.
This is a joy, but do I have time to tell just a little story?
Sure.
Okay. Can you hear me if I just talk like this? On Martin Luther King Day, I wanted to do something, and I've been checking around. Well, the Neon Theater in Dayton, I don't know if you know of that theater. It's a small movie theater, and I go there fairly often. They hosted a free showing of the movie Till with a discussion afterwards. And I thought, I'd already seen the movie. It was excellent and very moving. And I thought, well, I'll brave it again, from the emotion of it was hard to see. I'll brave it again and go. Well, the place was packed, both sides of the theater, with a really diverse crowd. It was probably, I think, everybody was represented there, but majority of them were black or white, so probably about 85% black and 15 white. And I went by myself, and I thought, I'm not going to go in there and just sit next to a bunch of white people. That was part of why I wanted to go, was to just interact, So I saw an empty seat and asked this lady if it would be okay if I sat there. If anybody was sitting there, she says, oh, nobody's sitting there, it's just for you. So I sat with her. She was there with her 2 children and her brother. And we kind of struck up a conversation ahead of time where she was a little concerned about with the story with her children being there, and I told her, well, I've already seen the movie, and you're here's what you look out for, and here's how it is, and she was so appreciative of that, okay? Well, during the movie, there's several points where I always cry, and ahead, before it started, I had a bunch of napkins with my free pop and popcorn, and I told her, you might want some of these, you know, and she said, thanks. Well, during the movie, I hear her snuffling, and I'm crying, you know, and she reaches over to me and puts her arm around me during the movie and says, you know, you okay? And I'm, yeah. And we just kind of hit it off. It was a real nice exchange. And at one point when, in the story, the mother was so suffering, and one of this lady's children switched seats with her brother and came over next to her mother and climbed in her mother's lap. And this was a kid, probably 10 years old, and just put her head down like that, you know, and her mother was patting her. It was so moving. Well, the discussion afterwards was led by, I don't remember the name or his connection, but he's kind of a big wig in local race relations in Dayton. And he's a minister also and stuff like that. Well, he started that out with his opinions on the movie and specifically race relations in Dayton. Where are we at with that? Where is it going? Where did we come from? And the discussion was really good because I heard from all different points of view. Where am I going to hear the Black perspective of that? Because I have some Black friends, but it's not like we would sit around and talk about this. You know, I think now we probably would, but I was so moved by the whole thing. And even during the movie where there were parts, when I saw it the first time, you know, you hear the rustling of junk food paper and, you know, just fussing and everything. It was stone silence. Everybody was so caught up in what was going on and the day it was and the fact that we were there trying to, you know, come together. It was a wonderful experience. And afterwards, they passed around a clipboard that if you wanted to be involved in this in Dayton and hear more about it and just find out what's going on, write it down. Well, I put my email address down, and that clipboard was full. It was so great, you know. But one thing I came away from there, and I hadn't really given this as much thought as I probably would now, was a comment that got a lot of reaction, was that one of the biggest obstacles we got to overcome is whites' fear of losing power. And I hadn't really thought about racism in that way. You know, I mean, yeah, you know, there's crime, there's housing abuse, and blah, blah, blah. But that really was poignant, I thought. And I want to light a candle for race relations that we're trying, but we got to do more than try, you know. But it was a wonderful experience, and there actually is another one coming up at the Neon the end of this month on homelessness. And that one, damn it, I went online and it's already all, the seats are all booked up. Yeah, the movie is a 40-minute documentary on homelessness with a discussion afterwards, but I couldn't get in, so I'm sort of on a waiting list. If somebody, you know, cancels out or something, I might just hang around outside the theater and right when it starts, see if there's any empty seats I could.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody reserved and won't show up, so there'll be
Yeah. But But these kind of experiences are something that is good to just reach out of your comfort zone, you know, and just get in there when you live a little cozy life like I do. I mean, it's not worth it.
Well, you're aware, and you're not the problem. I mean, if you want to see the problem, and that's what the problem is, if you look at voting, all the voting restrictions, all these things that the conservatives are doing is to maintain power. They're trying to keep people, because this country, the percentage of white people versus minorities, is the percentage of white people is going down all the time. And these people don't want to lose their position of power, so they're making it harder and harder for minorities to vote. It's blatant, it's obvious, it's everywhere, it's every state where they have control. But as to what you're referring to earlier, that's about building community. We're about building community. Anybody that has other friends is more than welcome to ask them to come to church with us to build community, or invite us to go where they are to build community. This might be a movie we put on our list, our movie list. Our next one will be probably in March, late February or March, will be on the Holocaust. We haven't quite decided. There's 3 PBS movies on the Holocaust, plus PBS has done 2 or 3 others. One of them was called Treblinka. I don't know if anybody saw that. That was very moving. We'll try and blend those together to make a pizza party, have a movie, and have discussion afterwards at the cottage. But this movie sounds like something we need to put in the list.
Yeah, it's very well done, and I know I'm taking up a lot of your time this morning, but the actual criminal act is not on screen. You're not going to see that, okay? If that would keep you away, the actual violence of it is not going to be shown. So keep that in mind. It's just a really, really well done movie. Okay,
and one more thing I wanted to raise on Joys and Concerns. Can you see this picture? And everybody knows who this is. Can you see what's on their lapel?
AR-15 looks like.
An AR-15 lapel pin. Conservatives are now wearing this proudly. This other lady is a Republican representative from Florida. Shortly after, this picture was taken shortly after the massacre in Florida, where all the students were killed with an AR-15, and these people are wearing an AR-15 lapel pin. That kind of tells you where we are as far as community, and the reason I brought it up, does anybody recognize where this picture is from? This is the attack on Congress, January 6th, a couple of years ago. This gentleman here, with the look of fear on his face, standing behind the policeman with the gun drawn. This is in the legislative chambers. He is a Georgia Republican representative, owner of a big gun store. He's the one who's handing out the AR-15 pins. This guy, who is afraid for his life, panicking because the people he supports were attacking the legislature. That's how bifurcated, how separated these people are in their brains. They can know what reality is, how dangerous what they do is, and yet they can't stop themselves from doing it. They get such a charge, such a feeling of power, and the reason they do it is because they know it irritates and upsets and scares liberals. That's the whole thing, is to incite the liberal, the left-leaning, the left-wing people in the United States, to get them mad, get them upset, to hurt their feelings, to cause all kinds of problems. That's if you talk to them, listen to these people, that's the reason they do this over and over and over again. There's something truly disturbed about people whose motive in life is to cause other people discomfort, to cause other people to feel bad, to scare other people. And that's their motive. So, okay. Any other joys and concerns? We'll light one final candle for those joys and concerns that you're not able to speak, that maybe you're not totally aware of, that may come to you later. Please know that we are available and we are here for any help we may be able to render. Okay, our message. is from Richard Venus, "To hold fragile in our hands." A number of years ago, I went to the farmer's market in Detroit looking for food for dinner. I asked one of the sellers if anyone there sold chickens and was told there were none there. But across the street, there was a market where I could find many. So I went. When I arrived, I found a room filled with squawking, clucking chickens running around. When I spoke to the owner of my mission, he simply said, "Just point to the one you want and it's yours." I confess that when I was asked to be the executioner, the whole idea of having been selected as the slayer meant chicken for supper did not appeal to me for a single moment. I left without dinner in hand. Lee Goodman is a commercial fisherman who had occasion to realize our connection to other creatures not completely unlike ourselves. Occasionally, a sea lion will move along his net at a safe distance away, stopping now and then to grab a fish, flipping it into the air as would a circus lion. "I holler from the bow," he writes, "my arms flailing after fish is taking from the nets like bills expertly picked from my pocket. In the net, I find half a fish, or just a head, or gill covers, or sometimes just silvery sequin scales marking where a fish went from mine to not mine." Mr. Goodman then notes how he lost plenty of fish to sea lions, but also to competing fishermen and to the biologist who open and close the fishery where he sells his catch. One stocky crewman offered, "Sea lions, all they need is a little vitamin L in the diet." Everybody know what vitamin L is? By which he meant lead from a bullet. On a still morning in early July, this veteran of many years at sea discovered a baby otter drowned in his net. He describes pulling the otter across the gunwale of his ship, still tangled in the web. He had never caught a mammal before. "In my hands, the tiny body felt surprisingly heavy and solid. Complex and intricate, I could feel bones and strong muscles. It felt the way my children feel when I lift them sleeping from the couch, and they curl into me without waking." He freed the dead otter and then went back to pulling in his nets, but with much more somber tone than before. Later that month, while retrieving his nets, he set the day before a dead sea lion floated past his boat. He and his crew tied the lion to an anchor and called the fish and wildlife scientist, who asked that he cut off the head and bring it to the laboratory in town. "I measured its length," he writes, "and rolled it over and found a gunshot wound in its shoulder. It was a tiny hole, smaller around than a pencil." It is easy for me to argue with those fishermen who would shoot a defenseless sea lion. They are an endangered species, and they are beautiful, fun-loving creatures who survive by eating fish from the nets and the sea, and sometimes fish caught in the fisherman's net. How could anyone justify shooting such a creature? I am, however, a fish-eating mammal. I regularly go to the meat counter at my local groceries and order up a pound or so of the catch of the day. I count on those fishermen to bring me dinner, and I find it much more complicated to criticize their actions when I regularly benefit from them. In their way, by destroying these sea creatures they detest, they are protecting their jobs. They are making possible the food they bring to our tables, and they are deciding for me what to kill. There are things I find easy to describe as evil: the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the stealing of absentee votes, the bombing of abortion clinics, the low wages paid to those who clean hospital floors and care for the elderly and serve us food. I also know there are those who would see these things as not as evil at all, but the very act of goodness. Those who go to war are building a better tomorrow for a country that suffered from brutal dictatorship. And some stopping ineligible voters from going to the ballot box. Others are saving the lives of innocent fetuses. And some others are providing jobs to workers and in a way that allows medical services to be offered to those in need. We, however, are asked to make decisions about right and wrong, good and evil, just and unjust, when all the facts aren't in. We make decisions when, if allowed, history might give us more information that might convince us to do otherwise. As I listen to myself, evil has a powerful tone. It feels like a word that describes only the most vile and utmost of the wrongdoing. But I wonder if this is not my way, only my way of adjusting. I wonder if I don't magnify the definition of this word so it only includes extreme violations of human rights, and therefore, by comparison, my missteps don't measure up to anything, worth nothing. I suspect using the word evil more often to describe my errant behavior would help me pay attention to the decisions I make. I suspect we all have asked ourselves more than once, what could I have done differently? How could I have lived in such a way as to prevent the evil I created? If only I had. Each of us has our own list of regrets, painful memories of the wrongs we have done. In New York City, housing is at a premium. Rents are huge, except where controls are in place, and many developers convert transient hotels into luxury apartment buildings. Owners of these seedy residential hotels have taken to intimidating, threatening, and illegally evicting their tenants, most of them non-white, all of them poor, so that the buildings can be converted into co-ops and sold at a huge profit. Harry Stein describes the dilemmas faced by a friend, Eric, who was considering buying an apartment in one of these converted hotels. Look, Eric said, I feel terrible about what happened to those people. I wish them justice. But why should I suffer? Someone's going to live in that apartment. Why shouldn't it be me? Self-justification may be perhaps the original human reflex. Most of us caught up in the syndrome of censure and reward at least want to appear to be doing the right thing. Yet we adjust. We learn to survive in this society is to tolerate in oneself a certain degree of inconsistency. As Mr. Stein puts it, every time we go to the supermarket, every time we deposit money in a bank, every time we let our kids watch some garbage on TV, chances are reasonably good that we are violating some belief or another. As for his friend Eric, after some serious soul searching, he transformed his understanding about buying the apartment and elected to keep hunting for a different place to live. Let us consider that evil is not a fallen state, but part of living in a state of becoming. Part of living in a state of becoming. As I look at the complexity of evolution, it seems plausible, in fact, much more realistic to assume that humanity is evolving ethically just as it evolved physically. Such developments suggest that we are physically maturing. We are also moving toward the good. We are finding our way. This is so Richard. Perhaps we are creating a Garden of Eden in some future time. We are part of that becoming, and our acts of evil are missteps on a continuum that is ongoing. As history continues, humanity increases in wisdom and understanding. That may be hard to see amid the wars, the violence, the political incorrectness, the racism we see among us, but I suggest that evil is a condition of our lives and occurs because we are not yet fully conscious or whole. We are only part of a creation that is in process of becoming. Our missteps can be, if we learn from them, progress on the way to becoming fully whole. As Dr. John Haught reminds us, evolution means that the world is unfinished, but if it is unfinished, then we cannot justifiably expect it to be perfect. It inevitably has a dark side. Our lives are incomplete. Our understanding is incomplete. We are finding our way. In our search, we will not get all things right. Rather, we will make steps toward the good as we learn from what we have done wrong. This is not evil. That is not sin. It is living life in our unfinished state. I do not mean to minimize the wrong that we do or to condone the pain and suffering that many inflict on others. I simply remind us that we are on a journey toward wholeness. Making missteps is part of finding our way. I return to Mr. Goodman and his life at sea, who writes, "It is winter now, and I still remember the solid, intricate weight of the baby otter. I remember the lion's liquid eyes and the distant operatic song, and I feel the loss of these things. I worry that in a diesel-fueled sheen left by boats in our bay, and in the exhaust yellow haze left by cruise ships in the fjords, more will be lost. With these losses comes a feeling beyond logic, a feeling that is intimate, built into our cells, which relate to every other cell and every other thing that lives and ever lived and ever will live. I like to protect things, to hold fragile things, and to feel in them the good solid weight of life," he concludes. "I wish I could hold them all the way I hold my son. All of Prince William Sound, all the world." The fisherman, Mr. Goodman, can't hold on to all these things, and he will even contribute to some of the losses he deplores. But he will also live by seeking to hold all the world in his caring hands. I trust that he will come to know that that is enough. Today, I still pick out a chicken, turkey, or hamburger from the meat counter at the local supermarket, but I realize, hypocrite that I am. I am happy for someone else to do the killing on my behalf, but could not bring myself to do it alone. I try, however, to have my hands open wide where there is need for them. Comments? An amazing turn of phrase. He is a truly beautiful writer. He puts ideas together. These are not all his ideas. He quotes and tells us who he's getting his ideas from. But he takes these ideas and blends them with experiences and things he has seen and makes it understandable. Something we can all strive for. So we'll hear more from Richard Venus. I hope that's acceptable to everybody. Any comments? All of us have experience with this. When we were first married, lived on the dairy farm, milking 50 cows. We raised a couple hogs for ourselves. We had chickens. We had turkeys. Like I told you the story about Turkey Lurkey, the turkey that my wife took to middle school, carried around and showed the kids what turkey was like for Thanksgiving. Turns out we couldn't slaughter Turkey Lurkey for Christmas. Turkey Lurkey was a pet. But one of the things we did do, we had a neighborhood. This is in the days when neighbors were neighbors in the country. We brought our pig, all the other neighbors brought their pig, and we had a slaughter Saturday where we all got together and killed our pigs and cut them open and sliced them up and had a bandsaw there, cut the meat up, put it in the freezer. That's the first time I had ever done that, and actually it was the last time I ever did it. It was an experience I felt was necessary. If you're going to eat meat, you should participate in the making or the creation of that meat. One of the most memorable experiences when the hogs were first killed, dipped in the boiling water, the skin, the hair was scraped off the skin. Then it was getting about lunchtime, so we cracked open their skulls, scooped out their brains, mixed them with scrambled eggs, and that was lunch. It was pretty good eating, but even as I think about it, it's tough. So I've given you something to think about at lunchtime. Here's another picture of a dolphin trapped in a net. This happens all the time. So, all right, we are on to any comments? Any experiences you would like to relate of a kind? Okay. Offering, ain't she sweet? Love to hear that, something happy at this time. Oh yeah, this is the first Sunday, so Fish Sunday. If you have any contribute to fish, I related a little story to Kenny, the two homeless girls that I've got in one of my houses that I'm working on that I'm going to have to evict because they're homeless for a reason, and I've discovered the reason is they don't want to help themselves. They just make life miserable for everybody all around them. I took them over to the fish pantry before Christmas and gave them some money to buy some other things, but from the fish pantry they got like a 7 or 8 pound ham, which I didn't realize fish was so generous in their contributions. I gave these girls a refrigerator and a stove to use and pots and pans and everything they needed. I came back, this was a frozen ham, we put it in the freezer when I took them back to the house. I came back 2 weeks later and I take the garbage out for them. And what do you suppose I found in the garbage? A ham. They had a way to cook it, but they didn't cook it. They had a dog, which I told them not to get a dog because they let the dog crap in my house. I said, if you didn't want the ham, you know, if it got thawed out and you didn't think it was safe to eat or you didn't want it, you could at least cut it up and feed it to the dog a little piece at a time. I mean, you're throwing away, somebody has donated money to buy a ham, which is a prized possession at Christmas time, and you took that ham, maybe out of the hands of some family that could have used it, and you threw it away. That is the mentality, and that's what Richard struggles with, and that's what we all struggle with. You try to help people, but sometimes people don't seem to deserve that help. So what do you do? When do you stop helping? And what do you do to not help? I'm going to have to evict these people. I'm going to talk to the homeless shelter about putting them in, but they cannot stay in my house. I'm to the place now where I have to finish it up so we can either rent it or sell it, and they make the house worse than when they moved in. They've broken windows, they've broken doors, their dog craps on the floor. I can't believe people live like this, but I'm beginning to understand why homeless people are homeless. Because I wouldn't let them live in my home. I mean, that's what it comes down to. All right. Ain't she sweet? And I'm not talking about these two girls. Closing hymn is 25, God of the earth, the sky, and the sea. been a pretty somber day, and I don't want to leave on a bad note. So this is something that was on the news. They said Chillicothe. I'm assuming it was Chillicothe, Ohio, a expression of good. It turns out it's Chillicothe, Illinois, but it's the same thing. It's a town of 6,000, and I don't think there was any real difference between Illinois and Ohio.
There's an old famous quote: "War is too important to be left to the generals." In one small Midwestern city, a motto to live by. Right now, there is a fire engine from Chillicothe, Illinois, on the ground in Ukraine.
It's kind of amazing.
For Chillicothe Fire Chief Marvin Broderick, it began months ago when he heard Marine Corps veteran turned local hospital executive Chris Manson was helping get ambulances to Ukraine after his 7-year-old asked about the war on the news.
Lily just said, "Hey Dad, is there anything we can do to help the people of Ukraine?" It hit me hard.
This rural city of 6,000 didn't have a spare ambulance. They had something far bigger, Fire Engine 1. Dozens signing messages of support.
There was no second guessing, everybody was 100% in.
A tougher task, transport. In October, a Ukrainian aid organization trucked Engine 1 to a warehouse in Chicago, and 2 months later to Baltimore. Then a ship to Germany and a drive with a fleet of ambulances through Poland, arriving last week in Mykolaiv. Chillicothe's Engine 1, America's first in Ukraine, here at an orphanage. You drove a big red American fire engine into multiple Ukrainian cities.
Absolutely, I did, with a big smile on my face.
Mykolaiv's fire chief says Engine 1 replaces 1 of 5 destroyed by the Russians.
He would like to express his gratitude towards the American people and assured me it will be in service and provide help to Mykolaiv firefighters.
Back in Chillicothe, gifts from Ukraine and chills over a photo, foreign and familiar.
All those people in front of the engine remind me of something that would happen right in front of our firehouse. So it shows that we're not that different.
Maggie Vespa, NBC News, Chillicothe, Illinois.
Isn't that
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by Nick.
All right, our benediction is by Amy Zucker Morgenstern. As we leave this hallowed place, may our feet remember its feel, so that wherever we walk, we know ourselves to be on hallowed ground. May we know that we are kin with every soul, every star, every stone, and every leaf of grass. And may our words be gentle and our touch be kind. Blessed be. Embraceable you. Thank you. There are donuts. There's not many, but I can get more. out of the freezer if we need them. Chaz and his wife have brought coffee, real coffee, good coffee, so we're always glad to have that. I want to show you one final picture. I've signed up with a new thing on Facebook called Between the Ears. Everybody takes a picture when they're riding their horse between their horse's ears. Mostly it's landscape. This lady took a picture of her friend in front of her there on her horse. She was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer about 3 months ago. She chose not to do chemotherapy or radiation because she wanted to enjoy her final moments. This is her last horse ride. She died 2 weeks. Okay, have a good day. Remember the good times, and they don't last forever.
Tell me the connection with this woman. Who was her friend?
Her friend is on the horse taking
Okay.
the picture. Her other friend is the one that had cancer and chose not to go because she wouldn't be able to ride if she was doing chemotherapy and radiation, and that only prolonged her life a couple months anyway. So they went out riding every day, and this was the last ride she was able to make before she got too sick and died. But she is enjoying her horse.